the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to my show, and tonight we've got an absolutely brilliant lineup. We've got the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman. She's just on her way back from America to talk about our broken asylum system. We've also got Henry Smith, he's a Conservative MP for Crawley. We've got James Snyder, he's back on the show at the left in the corner. He's a former advisor to Jeremy Corbyn. Nigel Nelson, political correspondent, he's back on the show for the second time. We've also got the legendary DJ, Neil Fox, he's on for the first time, and Katie Wassell, who's a singer-songwriter. But first, let's go to the news.
I'm Aaron Armstrong. Very good evening to you from the GB newsroom. A 14-year-old girl and a coach driver have died after a school bus overturned on the M53 on the Wirral. Pupils were on their way to Caldy Grange Grammar School and West Kirby Grammar School this morning. The bus was carrying 54 people when it collided with a car and struck a central reservation between Hoyton and Bebbington. 10 children were taken to hospital, 2 with serious injuries. Parts of the motorway remain closed. Mark Thomas, area manager of Merseyside Fire and Rescue Service, says investigations are underway.
Firefighters worked with emergency service colleagues at scene to stabilise the vehicle. We ensured the scene was safe and we assisted casualties exiting the bus. Working jointly with our police and ambulance colleagues, shortly after we were able to assist the casualties onto a second coach to receive care away from the scene. Our operations are currently scaling down, and currently we stay at the scene in attendance to preserve the scene with Merseyside Police.
University Hospitals Birmingham has been named as the trust where a 19-year-old died after a legal battle with the NHS. Sudiksha Tirumalai wanted to travel to North America for a potential clinical trial to treat a rare disorder. The trust disagreed with the teenager's family about what was in her best interests. The 19-year-old died on the 12th of September. The trust says the illness was incurable and Sudiksha didn't understand her condition. They've offered heartfelt condolences to her family. A 17-year-old boy charged with the murder of a 15-year-old girl has been remanded in custody after appearing in court. Eliane Andam was stabbed to death in Croydon on Wednesday while she was on her way to school. The teenager, who can't be named for legal reasons, has also been charged with possessing a knife. A man's reportedly been arrested in the United States over the murder of the rapper Tupac Shakur. The 25-year-old was killed in a drive-by shooting in Las Vegas in 1996, 27 years ago, Well, Dwayne Keffy D. Davis was detained earlier this morning. An indictment with the exact charges is expected later. Davis has long been known to investigators and has admitted in interviews that he was in the Cadillac when the shots were fired. And rail passengers are facing a week of travel chaos because of strikes and other forms of industrial action. ASLEF members began a ban on overtime today. That's ahead of a strike at 16 train companies. Tomorrow there'll be another one on Wednesday as they target the Conservative Party conference. The union says tomorrow's walkout will force operators to cancel all services. ASLEF's General Secretary Mick Whelan says his members haven't had a pay rise for 4 years, but the government and the Rail Delivery Group say there is a fair and reasonable offer on the table. Well, this is GB News. I'll be back with more in about an hour's time. That's it for the moment, but now it's over to Lee Anderson's Real World.
This is Lee Anderson's Real World with me, Lee Anderson, the Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party. Now, this week's show is a little bit different. The Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, is joining me straight off the plane from DC, where she gave a speech on immigration and border control to the American Enterprise Institute. A speech which it is fair to say has divided opinion, and you'll hear plenty of that throughout this interview. But first, I started by asking Suella why she felt the need to speak out.
My speech was really an exposition of the challenges that we're all facing, whether it's the US, UK, European countries, relating to the international laws that govern us, and an invitation to like-minded partners on the global stage to work with us, work together to try and reform and find a more workable solution.
Because it is a worldwide problem, Home Secretary, it needs a worldwide solution. Do you think they're listening to you?
Listen, I do. I think that what I was saying in my speech was actually an echo of what many other world leaders have said in the past, whether it's David Cameron or Angela Merkel or Nicolas Sarkozy. But we are seeing play out, not just in the US on the southern border, but in Lampedusa, in Italy. I talked about it in my speech. You know, record numbers of people, overwhelming a small island, and the EU really grappling with this unprecedented challenge. So we are all facing a global migration crisis. It requires a global solution. We should work together to try and get it right. Democratic mayor of New York recently said that this is out of control and it's going to destroy the city. And I think that's quite astonishing for someone on the progressive end of the political spectrum to be saying this is totally unacceptable. So whether it's New York City, whether it's the border with Texas, whether it's Italy, whether it's the Channel, we need to look again at whether these international rules are fit for purpose. And what I said in my speech is that there's a lot at stake. There's democratic legitimacy, which is at stake. People want control of their borders, and they want governments to get a grip on this. And if we don't, it will lead to a disintegration in our society. And we need to change. We need to change some of the definitions relating to refugee persecution. It needs to be a high bar if someone is coming to our country fleeing persecution, not a low bar.
After Suella spoke in DC, the UN's refugee agency, the UNHCR, made an intervention defending the 1951 convention, saying it remains as relevant today as when it was adopted. I asked the Home Secretary about her concerns.
These documents, these conventions, as you said, were born out of the World War II tragedy and global movements of people. But they were designed for a smaller number of people before the age of cheap travel, before the age of social media, and before the age of the geopolitics that we're seeing today, which are causing this mass movement of people to the Western world, largely. And so I think it's a reasonable question to ask. Are these documents and rules that we set in another world, in another era, still fit for the 21st century and the challenges that we face today? I don't think they are. Not everybody coming to the UK on a boat is a refugee or is fleeing persecution. Number one, they're coming from France. they're coming from a safe country, an EU member state, a member of NATO, a leading ally in the world. There is no humanitarian reason why anyone should be leaving France. Secondly, many of these people are gaming the system. We know that they will lie about their ages. We know in about 50% of cases, when we challenge the age, the government is right and the claimant is wrong, and they're actually adults pretending to be children. They may lie about their religion. They may lie about being married to someone or having a family member here. So there is a lot of gaming of our system, and we need to inject more rigour and robustness into our framework and actually deterrence. And that's why our partnership with Rwanda is absolutely essential to solving this problem.
This week, Labour's Shadow Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, said Suella Braverman had given up on fixing what they call the asylum chaos. I put this to the Home Secretary and got a robust response.
The Labour Party is clueless on this issue. They would scrap our Rwanda plan. They would fundamentally open our borders. They want to renegotiate with the EU returns agreement. The EU's even said that's a stupid or deluded idea. And they are effectively a party for open borders, unlimited migration, and I'm afraid rejoining the EU. So on any basis, the numbers heading to our country are too high. We cannot take this level of migration. There's too much pressure on our housing and accommodation, on our health services, on our school places, and we need to be able to control this better.
In a statement, the Labour Party told GB News, it's fictional garbage from a Home Secretary who is failing so badly to fix the Tory chaos in the asylum that she's now making things up about everyone else. The Tories have lost control of our border security as criminal smuggler gangs have taken hold of the Channel. The Conservatives have broken the asylum system, with the taxpayer now spending $8 million a day on hotels, and returns of failed asylum seekers have dropped by a shocking 70% since they came to power. Labour went on to say only Labour has a plan to end the chaos in Britain's asylum system.
Well, I'm joined now by Nigel Nelson, who's a political commentator and a regular on GB News. Also, we've got James Snyder back on the programme. He's a former advisor to Jeremy Corbyn. Strong words there, guys, from the Home Secretary. Please do not gang up on me. But, Nigel, any comments? Feedback?
Yeah, the first one is the missed opportunity. I think that she's absolutely right that migration is a global problem. There's 100 million people on the move, and certainly countries need to get together to deal with it. But the answer is not ripping up sort of the Refugee Convention. It's not leaving the European Court of Human Rights. What we need to do, and this would need international agreement, is to ensure that people can claim asylum outside this country. At the moment, they can only claim asylum on British soil. That's what draws the people into the boats to cross over from Calais. So that's what she should have raised in America, because that is the problem that needs to be dealt with. It needs to be dealt with internationally. And as for talking about, they could always go to the first safe country they come to, well, that would be ludicrous. I mean, if we've got so many people on the move, you can't do that. Turkey's got 4 million refugees in it at the moment. Okay. 70% of asylum...
So do you think, Nigel, that if we had your way, that would stop people coming over the Channel in small boats?
I don't think you stop it entirely. I don't think we're ever going to stop it entirely.
And how many refugees or migrants does that open the door to around the world having your solution?
Well, I mean, that's the whole point about international agreement. It's not a question of actually opening the door to...
Would you cap it?
You would cap it. You would have numbers there. But if you had safe and legal routes to come here, it would take away the incentive to cross the Channel. You sort that out by taking people from UN refugee camps.
But the people, Nigel, that want to cross the Channel, come here and live a life of crime, and we know that happens. We've seen it with the Albanians. They not want to go to...
90% of whom don't come here anymore on the basis that we've got a returns agreement.
Exactly. But when they come here for criminal activity, a policy like you suggest ain't going to stop that.
Well, I mean, what we're talking about is trying to stop the boats. I mean, that is the absolute priority, because it's really dangerous for people to do it. Yeah. Now, the only way you can do that is to have settlement schemes. Now, we don't have settlement schemes except for Hong Kongers, for Ukrainians, less effective the ones for Afghans. Yeah. What I'm talking about is taking away the incentive of crossing the Channel in the first place.
James, Can we take the whole world into our great country?
No one is asking us to. So, I mean, like that idea, you've got this catastrophist idea, oh my goodness, we're going to be swamp bowl of these people. It's the same thing that Suella Braverman was sort of putting forward. And then no solutions. I mean, what Nigel just laid out, I could quibble with around the edges perhaps, but it's like a sensible proposal that would involve improving the safety for people and turning something which is uncontrolled and dangerous into something which is controlled and managed. All of the rhetoric which is not designed to improve anybody's lives, whether here or elsewhere, it's purely designed to say, don't look at the problems we've created in this country. It's really the fault of these frightening people over here who are coming to invade or something like that. There's no solutions to improve any of these issues that are laid out there. And so really it's headline chasing to seem like you're tough and you're acting strong against this thing with no humanity and no policy.
We've seen the problems, Nigel, in America. You know, tens of thousands of migrants in New York. It's costing an absolute fortune. I mean, we looked at our problems in the UK with the illegal migration and people crossing the channel. It's nothing compared to the problems they've got in America. Shouldn't that be a wake-up call to us?
Well, I mean, in a sense, we are woken up to it. We actually know what the problem is. And when we're making comparisons, I mean, our problem is nothing like the one that Germany is going through or France is going through at the moment, that Europe is having a major problem with migration, with asylum seekers trying to come over. What we're trying to talk about here is, what is the solution to that? And the only solution can be how you actually distribute so many people fairly around the globe. It needs a global solution. And that's why withdrawing from international organizations is not the way forward. We have to work with them to find that solution.
James, do you think our asylum system is being taken advantage of?
In the main part, absolutely not. I think that we're not fulfilling our basic obligations as humans to provide sanctuary to people who are in danger. I mean, as Nigel was saying, there are basically no safe routes. If you are from Afghanistan, a country that we occupied for the best part of 2 decades, then and you might have helped I don't know, the BBC or some other British institution or possibly the army, there's no safe way for you to get to this country. And that is clearly against basic human values and should be against our values.
Nigel, well, yeah, I have 30 seconds on this one to close your part. Was Suella right when she said that it does need a world solution? It's a global problem.
Yes.
It needs a world solution.
This is where I agree with the Home Secretary. It needs a global solution. Let's have that discussion with other countries to sort this out.
James, do you agree with that?
I completely agree with that. And what she was saying, we need a global solution, and then saying basically, no, we're going to build walls.
I take it from you guys, final word, that you don't think we're quite pulling our weight at the moment with taking in enough refugees. Is that,
no, there's not a question of that. No, I mean, it's not a question of actually the number of people you take in. What we should be taking in here is not economic migrants. We should be taking in genuine asylum seekers. Every refugee starts out as an asylum seeker. Not all asylum seekers are refugees. We must establish quickly that they are refugees so they can begin working here.
And James, why did they leave a safe country like France to come here if they're fleeing persecution?
Let's take the Afghan example I just gave. They could maybe speak English. They might have some connection to the UK because they might have some family here, or they might know somebody who's come from where they're from in Afghanistan who worked with British people and they like Britain. There are loads of completely understandable reasons why people from Afghanistan or Syria or Iran or whatever want to
What about young males who's coming from Africa, from Sudan and Eritrea? They're coming to several safe countries, and they're in the camps. They're being taught how to speak English. They don't speak English. They're being coached in the asylum process by the charities. I know, I was there. Are these people genuine asylum seekers, or are they economic migrants that's taking advantage of our asylum system?
I generally think that people stop running and stop getting into dangerous situations when they feel safe. So if they're getting into this dangerous journey across the channel, then that sort of means they're not safe. If you're talking about Eritrea, there's a reason why there are huge numbers of asylum seekers from Eritrea, and it has very high levels of acceptance as refugees because of the dictatorial policies of that country and having military service for life. That's the reason why people are refugees from Eritrea.
Thanks, guys. Wonderful stuff. Do not go away. Coming up next, we've got James Snyder is staying with us. He's going head-to-head with Henry Smith, who's the MP for Crawley. Also got the Yes No quiz coming up.
Hello again, it's Aidan McGivern here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. A fine start for most of us this weekend. Cloud and rain do turn up through central parts by Saturday afternoon, but sunshine returns through Sunday. So mixed conditions, best times for getting out and about early Saturday or later Sunday. Low pressure moving away from the north of Scotland on Friday nights. Still some showers continuing during the hours of darkness, even the odd shower further south across West Wales and North West England. But for the vast majority, actually, it's clearing skies and winds easing, and that will lead to widely temperatures in the single figures. Even low single figures for some sheltered northern parts as we begin Saturday. So a cold start, and there'll be a few mist patches through central and southern parts of England, mid-Wales, for example, first thing. They'll disappear, and then plenty of sunshine for many on Saturday morning, especially for northern parts of Scotland, the Midlands, East Anglia and the south of England. Elsewhere, we've got cloud building, we've got rain pushing in, that rain turning heavy and persistent for Northern Ireland, southwest Scotland, northwest England and North Wales, accompanied by a strong wind with coastal gales. The rain's still with us on Sunday morning. Northern England, parts of Wales, seeing those outbreaks of rain heavy at first. It does tend to push southeastwards and weaken by the afternoon. Sunny spells return elsewhere, a fresher feel for northwest Scotland, but feeling warm in the sunshine away from here. And next week starts off with further rain and showers in places.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christys, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christys, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Join me, Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner, Monday to Thursday, 9:30 a.m.
Who benefits from that? Not the British public.
And on Fridays, join us, Tom Harwood
and Ellie Costello from Britain's Newsroom.
That's what you get with this show, that's fantastic.
If it's happening, we're talking about it on Britain's Newsroom.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World, and tonight we've got Henry Smith, the MP for Crawley. We've got James Snyder, he's returned. He was the left in the corner, refusing to be left in the corner tonight. The blackboard's gone, but I'm glad to see you, James. Look, straight to it, guys. Horrible, horrific incident again this week in London, where a young girl, schoolgirl, travelling to school on a bus was sadly stabbed and she's died. My feelings goes out to the family and all the friends, but Henry, stop and search. Should we increase the powers of the police to do more stop and search to stop these sort of crimes happening in the future?
Well, several years ago, I welcomed the fact that stop and search was brought back by the then Home Secretary. I think it does need to be reviewed. I think stop and search saves lives. This horrendous incident happened just up the road from where I am. And, you know, for a 15-year-old schoolgirl to die in a knife attack is just a tragedy. And if there are policies that can help stop that happening, and I think stop and search is part of that sort of range of measures, then absolutely, I think it's an important tool for the police.
But we do see, Henry, some politicians, especially on the left, saying it's racist. They target, you know, ethnic minority groups the most. But we do know at the same time that you're 12 times more likely to be murdered in London if you are a young black man than a white man.
Well, that's absolutely right. I mean, I think it's ethnic minorities who are mainly the victims of knife crime, and therefore I think there's a strong argument to say that having stop and search and really bearing down on knife crime, which destroys families, destroys lives of people from across different communities, is something that's important to have. I don't see that as a racist policy at all.
I don't actually think the police, you know, look for black people or people of a different colour and think we're going to search them. I think they just do it as part of the job. And to be honest with you, Henry, if it saves one life, surely it's got to be worth it.
Well, I know a lot of police officers, obviously dealt with police officers for many years in my role as a Member of Parliament and previously as a local councillor. I know that they're very dedicated. They look at what they believe is the best evidence when they are looking to stop people who think might be getting into trouble. You know, I think we need to trust the judgment of the best police officers that exist in the world.
James, stop and search, is it the right thing to do? Is it ideal?
No, it's not the right thing. It's not ideal. I mean, we've got to look at why we've got this, these terrible crimes that are happening. And we've had now 13 years of cuts, the sorts of things that help keep kids off the street, make it less likely. You've had cuts to youth services, to community services, to further education. We've also seen basically the effective scrapping of community policing. And the problem with stop and search is that what you need is policing by consent. And stop and search is not consensual in communities because it is done in a disproportionately racist way. And that's what all of the evidence shows. If it's disproportionately targeting generally black people, but all, you know, ethnic minorities. I've never been stopped and searched. You've probably never been stopped and searched. That is a real problem. And you've also got to factor in that for young people, you know, people sort of my age, I was born in the 1980s, we're the last generation who were told things will be better than it was for your parents, and then we find out that it's not. Pay is on average the level it was in 2005, the year I left school. But for people born in the 2000s, they have no prospect of life getting better. Life has got worse year on year throughout their lives. Services are being cut, prospects of pay, access to education is all being reduced. So I think these are the things that we should be looking at. And policing has to be consensual. We need community police who are seen as part of the community that they are policing, not who are driving a bigger wedge. And you know, when you say the best police service in best police service in the world, I mean, the Met has, you know, there's report after report of terrible abuses of power, which also tend towards racism and other things like that. So if the problem is crime, just giving the police that are currently not really helping, and which type of police it is, more powers isn't going to reduce that. There are some things that you can do on powers.
James is suggesting that a cut to public services and the racism within the police force leading to knife crime. I say that in Ashfield, where I represent, I'm not sure about where you represent, Henry, that we've had cuts. We've had public services trimmed down. We've had, you know, local services cut back. There's no knife crime epidemic in Ashfield.
Well, fortunately, there aren't many incidents of knife crime in Crawley either. And actually, police numbers over the last decade have actually increased in the constituency that I represent. They haven't gone down, and there is community policing. But James is right. I mean, I think there's a whole range of reasons as to why crime exists, and one single measure isn't going to tackle that. But I do think stop and search is an important tool. And the evidence also suggests that if you are a young person carrying a knife, the chance of your own knife being used against yourself in a crime is hugely increased. And that's got to be something that we need to encourage young people not to get involved with.
So, James, you talk about 13 years of Tory rule. It's a term we hear a lot these days in politics. But what about parents? When are they going to take responsibility for what their children are doing on the streets of London?
I mean, I think parents do take responsibility, and that is a constant. But, I mean, when you have less money, higher, lower wages, higher rent, fewer services, this puts it's squeezing whole communities, and you've got
So higher rents increasing knife crime? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying falling living standards and a loss of hope for young people, it will lead to more crime. Now, there are some things that we can do to directly deal with it. I would support much tougher bans on knives.
My parents were brought up in abject poverty in the 50s, 40s and 50s, just after the war. They didn't go out stabbing people. They had nothing, absolutely nothing. So I'm not buying that, James.
Well, in the 1940s and firstly, the country had come together during World War II. Now we're split apart. We then had the creation of the welfare state, the NHS, and we had large-scale, year-on-year, big increases in living standards for the overwhelming majority of people. So people had a lot more hope. Part of the thing, right now, of course, the financial average for today is higher than it was then, but there is a lack of hope because people look at their lives and their community lives and they see them getting worse, and they don't see that about to turn around.
Henry,
and that's the real issue.
I'm going to give you the last minute on this. Obviously, I disagree with James, as I do on most things. He seemed to suggesting the state should be taking over parenting of children. I don't think. Well, you are actually. You're blaming the state for people going out stabbing people, and the education starts in the household. It should be good parenting that stops this, not the state. I believe that.
There are too many young people starting school who can't dress themselves, can't speak the language properly, still not toilet trained, and there is a real concern about a lack of proper parenting. It isn't always up to the state to do everything. The state is there as a partner, but parents really need to be the primary educators of children, particularly in those early years, because then the situation is set for the rest of that young person's life.
You see, when I started school, guys, I knew the difference between right and wrong. I knew how to tie my shoelaces. I knew my times table up to, I think it was 10. I could write my name and address. I could change my clothes. I could feed myself. I think you're quite right there, and we see a lot of that in schools today. I know because my wife was a school teacher, that she spent half her time actually dressing children, taking them to the toilet. When they did PE, they did about 5 minutes PE out of an hour session because the children couldn't get undressed and dress themselves. I actually think, and I'm not for state control, that there should be some sort of test for children when they start school. They should be able to do these things. They should be able to tie the shoelaces and feed themselves and write their name. I think that's just should be a basic entry level as a 4 or 5 year old child. But look, we've got the yes or no quiz next. This is the time when two people who's involved in politics, a politician and a former advisor to Jeremy Corbyn, are going to answer 5 simple questions, hopefully, yes or no. Right, guys, straight to the yes or no quiz. For you, Henry, first, do you agree with stop and search?
Yes.
James?
No.
OK, for you, James, first, has multiculturalism in the UK failed?
No.
Henry?
Yes.
Number 3 for you, Henry, will Sadiq Khan win the mayoral election next year in London?
No.
Yes.
Ooh. And number 4, James, will Donald Trump be the next US president?
No.
Henry?
Yes.
Probably will. Number 5, Henry, should the ULEZ expansion be scrapped in London?
Yes.
No.
So some differences of opinion there. Is there anyone you want to come back on there, Henry? What about the multiculturalism question?
Yeah, that is a difficult one to just say yes or no. I think a lot of different cultures in the community I represent have really good relations, and it really isn't a problem. But I think in some of our big cities, there is far too much segregation, self-segregation of communities, and I think that is a growing problem.
James?
Firstly, what is your definition of multiculturalism?
It's when we all live, work and live happily together, and we all get on in life. We all have the same dreams, aspirations, and we can all, just be happy in society.
So, I mean...
and live together.
Yeah.
And we don't live together, do we, James?
Well, I think we, broadly speaking, do live together.
Well, go to streets in Derby and Nottingham, you see the full street, it will be all Asian community. There'll be no British white people on these streets. It's all Asian. They live in their own community. And the same with the Brits when we go abroad. We do exactly the same. We go to Spain and we live in a big community, with British people. That's not multiculturalism. They do it in Thailand as well. They do it all over the world. They go and live together.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, of course, is our society perfect? No, far from it. And would it be better if there was more cultural exchange and people learnt about each other, and would that make things better? Yes, but the question is is the basic idea that we should live together and that be fine a good one? Yes. And is that in the direction in which we're going? Yes. So to say that it's failed and it's this huge problem and there's this wave of undermining of Western civilization or whatever nonsense that Suella Braverman said isn't true.
Thanks for that, guys. Look, after this, we've got somebody, a famous face that you will recognise from the 80s and 90s. Bit of a pop legend. He was a DJ, also a doctor, I think he was, and that's Neil Fox.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is two new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner, Monday to Thursday, 9:30 a.m.
Who benefits from that? Not the British public.
And on Fridays, join us, Tom Harwood
and Ellie Costello from Britain's Newsroom.
That's what you get with this show. That's fantastic.
If it's happening, we're talking about it on Britain's Newsroom.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the show, and today we've got legendary DJ Neil Fox. Neil, thanks for joining us on the show today. Absolute pleasure. We had a chat before, very interesting chap is Neil. Pop Idol. He was on there for several years back in the day.
Yeah, Pop Idol was fun.
Was it a good way to find stars? A real talent?
Well, it's interesting. I ended up, at the height of Pop Idol, ending up at the Oxford Union having a debate whilst having to sort of defend talent shows, because they were saying they were crap. What an awful way to find talent. We actually ended up winning. But look, I think it was always a debate at the time. TV talent shows, they've been around since the 60s, 50s, 60s from America, and we've imported them. They are good ways of finding talent, or a way of finding. It's not the only way of finding talent. I think with musical talent, the way it went, Pop Idol was sort of realistic. We started in, small basements of dingy places, doing auditions. We built up to a studio without an audience. It was a journey for people, which is not unlike, I think, other people might take in what I call the real world. But then, of course, it sort of got slightly crazy for Series 2. Then it all became X Factor. And of course, what it became was just a massive entertainment juggernaut.
Some people, Neil, surely just need a break, don't they? And these sort of programmes, these talent shows, whatever, reality TV shows, give, these people a break, and that's all they need, really.
They do. Some people just need exposure. I mean, Will Young, for example, who won the first series, really lovely guy, really talented fella. He had been around trying to make it, for years, actually. And then this was the vehicle that allowed him to do it. Leona Lewis, you'd probably say the same. A lot of these guys, it was just they're looking for that break. It's a certain kind of music, so it's normally what I call quite poppy. But I guess I suppose Will always fought against the sort of Simon Cowell-ness of the whole thing and wanted to be his own guy. But I think it's just a great exposure. You're sitting in front of 15 million people. If they like you, that's a pretty good audience.
So I'm a big Elvis fan.
Right.
I know you like Elvis yourself. I think I was talking earlier about growing up in the 70s. We had Elvis's 40 Greatest Hits. That was the only record we had in the house. So obviously we played that on a Sunday morning. So it turned me into a massive Elvis fan.
Yeah.
And I look at some of the TV talent shows today. They've not really produced an Elvis, have they? They've not. Or the Beatles. The Beatles went through a big apprenticeship. They're in the late 50s. Then went to Germany. Were playing 8 hours a day. So, but then again, possibly in the 60s, there were lots of hundreds and thousands of bands, but only just a couple shone through, like the Stones and the Beatles. And
yeah, the ones that stood the test of time. There's no doubt that those bands that go out there, as there are lots of bands now that literally form, graph, pubs, clubs, they do that whole circuit still and build up. There is this other route now, which has been, I guess, reality TV, but now social media as well. So record companies find talent in very different ways now. There's no doubt those old bands there that serve their apprenticeship, as you'd like to call it. You could put them anywhere, any place. They can play, they can sing. And the good ones, the cream rose to the top. Beatles, Stones, two of the greatest of all time.
Yeah. What was the first record you ever bought and why?
Well, the actual first record I bought was the Peter Pan soundtrack, and I bought it at Boots in Kingston, which is it's hardly the most credible thing. The first single I ever bought was by a bloke. Actually, it was Telegram Sam by T-Rex.
Oh, brilliant. I love Mark Bolan.
Well, you see, look, you can't be that old Rat Pack. You still think now Michael Bublé has got an entire career that was slightly based starting on being like a modern version of the Rat Pack. Yeah. And they were brilliant. Those songs, timeless, So there are certain songs that clearly now, like a lot of the Beatles, pretty much all of the Stones and so many others, you can put them on T-Rex, Mark, Bowie. These are classics that will never, ever change. We play them on the radio as much now as we did then. And they still sound amazing. And amazingly, this is the good thing about modern technology, a whole new generation have been allowed to find these songs on Spotify or all the music platforms, and they can listen to them without seeing a video. The videos make them look old. The songs still sound young.
Yeah. OK, so moving forward, obviously been successful. Got a bobber to it, Bank, I won't imagine. Done all this great work over the years. What gets you up in the morning? What motivates you?
Do I still do a morning radio show every day for a station called Nation, which was something we started building a couple of years ago. I still really love music, and I love stuff around music. I love the entertainment business. It still gets me up at 6 o'clock every morning, and I love doing it.
And what do you think to this AI, this artificial intelligence in the pop industry, where they can recreate people like Elvis and Michael Jackson, where they put them on a stage and put an audience
Yeah. I mean, look, it's, oh my God, I mean, where do you start? I think there are 10,000 songs a day artificially created by bots now and AI that end up on the streaming platforms. And it's a big problem for the record labels because obviously what they're trying to do is go, oh my God, how can we control this? We actually want real people who've made real songs to get paid. And all these bots that are creating stuff that's basically, if we take 1 million songs and find the best bits and put them together, it's just not the same. It's a bit like doing painting by numbers. It's, you know, you could sort of recreate the Mona Lisa by putting the right colours in the right place, but the art of it initially to create it is not there. And I think that's what's missing, the humanity that is missing out of AI now. But look, there are some bits, it's clever. AI, I'm not going to knock AI because if you think what it can do in the medical world or other areas, it's absolutely brilliant. But creatively, and you can see this whole row going on in Hollywood, partly over this, because people are fed up with the idea of a robot is going to write a script.
You look at some of the songs the Beatles wrote in the 60s, I think they're off their heads a lot of the time on all sorts of substances, but brilliant songs they were, Sgt. Pepper's.
Yeah, Sgt. Pepper's, and then you literally go like Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, LSD, you probably think where that one came from. But, well, we know where that one came from, clearly. Look, they were, but I think whether people have been maybe having a few beers or doing something else, some of that creativity has been let loose somewhere. Look, we've ended up with brilliant songs to enjoy.
But they worked hard as well, Neil, didn't they? I mean, they served their apprenticeship in Germany, in Hamburg, in the clubs. They were playing, like we say, 8 hours a day. It didn't come easy or not always naturally, but it was hard work, a lot of talent, and they copied a lot of American artists as well. They copied people like Little Richard, they copied the Everly Brothers, they copied a bit of Elvis, all that sort of stuff, and they put it all in one sort of mix.
It was all that rhythm and blues that, you know, you read any biog from the Beatles or the Stones, that's what they're obsessed with, and that's, you know, what they wanted to try and recreate. You know, young boys getting their money together, getting a record player, listening to all their favourite songs together, and then trying to sort of do the same.
Neil, absolute pleasure. Thanks for that. Brilliant to listen to you. But do not go away. We've got Last Orders and On the Pull with Katie Way. So we'll be talking about her pop career and the ups and downs. Do not go away.
Join me, Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner, Monday to Thursday, 9:30 a.m.
Who benefits from that? Not the British public.
And on Fridays, join us, Tom Harwood
and Ellie Costello from Britain's Newsroom.
That's what you get with this show. That's fantastic.
If it's happening, we're talking about it on Britain's Newsroom.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Put in your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christys, at Drive Time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christys, on GB News and GB News Radio.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows,
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
That sounds like last orders, and I'm joined by the lovely Katie Way. So, Katie, thanks for coming on my show. X Factor, 2010, what was all that about?
I mean, that's a great question. I'm still asking myself that today. You know, some people may know me from being on that show, a show that I really never truly wanted to go on or be on, which is quite fascinating and interesting to say the least. But at the same time, there I was, and the bigger the problem, the greater the blessing, so to speak. And it's now led me to where I am today, fighting that good fight for all those in the creative industry sector.
So why did you go on, if you didn't really want to go on?
I think when you find yourself in a situation or a position where, you know, you have been potentially led there, so to speak, without being too cryptic about it. You know, I'm fully aware of what I can say and not say. So I just found myself there in that position. But what is really interesting, and I really enjoyed, I guess, finding out about you, is that you put together Ashfield's Got Talent on YouTube, which was fantastic. And I read that you had done that to keep people's spirits up during lockdown. So, you know, what the viewer, I guess, would expect from a talent show or an entertainment show is exactly that, you know, something that it is transparent but is uplifting, but it isn't that behind the scenes when you're dealing with
So in your industry, obviously there's highs and there's some mega lows as well, which has led you onto a bit of a campaign, a crusade, if you like.
I mean, right, exactly. So I have a foundation called the OWL Foundation. It stands for Overseeing the Welfare, Human Rights and Liberty for those in the industry sector. We're all about safeguarding. We want preventative measures to be put in place, laws and legislations to change to reflect the people in today's day. You know, we're dealing with a lot of online interactions, even if you take a look at the allegations against Hugh Edwards, against Philip Schofield, against Russell Brand. A lot of communication has been allegedly happening online. So we're really campaigning for safeguarding and deterring people from, you know, perhaps thinking that they might be able to get away with something that they would have historically been able to get away with.
So I guess a lot of young children, kids, if you like, watch these talent programmes, Britain's Got Talent, Pop Idol, you know, X Factor, and they'll be sat in their bedrooms in the front of the mirror wanting to be the next, you know, Britney, whoever it is these days, or the next Katie Waisel. What sort of advice would you give to these young people, you know, going in there with their eyes wide open?
Oh, I would say read the contracts, read what you're signing, have somebody independently look over that. Even if it's a release form, read what you're signing and understand it. And if you're not sure, don't be afraid to ask questions. Unfortunately, back in 2010, there were clauses in our contracts, I'm happy to bring the receipts on this, which stated if you don't sign it, somebody else will. And so it's that imbalance of power. So I would always say to anybody that's thinking about entering the industry or going on a reality TV show, read the paperwork and believe in yourself and your ability and your talent. That don't sell it for nothing.
So if you had your time, would you do it all again? Or differently? Would you go on the talent show again?
No, I didn't want to go on it in the first place.
Okay.
No, but I would still look. I don't have a time machine. Elon Musk hasn't invented that just yet. So I don't have a time machine, but all I can be grateful for is the present. And you got to turn poison into medicine.
And what does the future hold for Katie Waisel?
What does the future hold? Taking one day at a time, continuing to speak up and speak out, and hopefully through OWL, safeguard and protect the industry, which deserves to be protected so people can enjoy it and be safe.
Sounds very noble, Katie, but not only have we got behind the bar to talk about your career and the highs and lows, but we need to make sure that you pull a pint, and we've got a brilliant judge here. There is a doctor in the house. Dr. Fox, come here. Yeah, big clap.
Dr. Fox.
There you go.
Even got the
Thank
jingle.
you.
Right. That one there, look, and there's no cheating. You've got about 30 seconds to pull a pint.
30 seconds?
Yeah.
Okay,
The clock's ticking.
all right, so we first of all want to make sure that...
No, just pull
oh,
it.
God, just pulling
Just
it.
pull it.
Are you an expert?
Are you,
No.
are you silencing me? Oh, dear.
I'm cancelling you.
Look at this. This is clearly a new
It's a
barrel.
shocker. It's not a new barrel.
Lee, I'm feeling that I've just
This is a
ended. This is
new
a new
barrel.
show called Pub Idol, isn't it?
It's
It's
it
Pub
is, yeah.
Idol.
Yeah.
Come on, Katie, get on.
Come on.
All right, but it's just all froth.
It doesn't matter.
Just keep
That's
going.
not... all right.
Stop making
all-
excuses. Stop making excuses.
At the moment, I feel I'm going to have to be harsh, Katie. If this was
Oh dear.
the show,
Look
would you
at
go
that.
through to the next
Can you
round?
just
But
plonk
no
that?
way.
Yeah. Would that go through to the judge's house?
I think that all viewers watching this, listen, I used to work in a pub back in the day.
Not for very
and
long,
I'm a
by the
nice
looks of
beard.
it.
Yes, clearly the barrel needs change. Well, it's a new barrel, so it just needs to be...
So we've got a qualified doctor in the
out.
house.
Yes.
Doctor, what would... Out of 10?
I'd say this one ain't going through to the next round. Sorry, Katie.
Well, if I was to mimic what happened in 2010, please, sir, let me do one more. If I could go to another tap.
No,
oh, gosh.
absolutely not.
It's not how it
So,
works.
out of 10?
That's terrible.
I think one for effort.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I think one for effort, yeah. And there weren't much effort gone into it, to be honest with you. But there you go, on the poll with Katie Wessel and Dr. Fox. Well, there we go. A massive thanks to all my guests tonight on Lee Anderson's Real World. You know, next week we've got a cracking lineup again. We've got Lucy White. She's a public affairs policy expert. We've also got the Conservative MP, Louis French, a good friend of mine. We've got the broadcaster and TV personality, Aisling Horgan-Wallace. Look, good night. Stay safe.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows,
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel. Hello again, it's Aidan McGivern here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. A fine start for most of us this weekend. Cloud and rain do turn up through central parts by Saturday afternoon, but sunshine returns through Sunday. So mixed conditions, best times for getting out and about early Saturday or later Sunday. Low pressure moving away from the north of Scotland on Friday nights. Still some showers continuing during the hours of darkness, even the odd shower further south across West Wales and North West England. But for the vast majority, actually, it's clearing skies and winds easing, and that will lead to widely temperatures in the single figures. Even low single figures for some sheltered northern parts as we begin Saturday. So a cold start, and there'll be a few mist patches through central and southern parts of England, mid-Wales, for example, first thing. They'll disappear, and then plenty of sunshine for many on Saturday morning, especially for northern parts of Scotland, the Midlands, East Anglia and the south of England. Elsewhere, we've got cloud building, we've got rain pushing in, that rain turning heavy and persistent for Northern Ireland, southwest Scotland, northwest England and North Wales, accompanied by a strong wind with coastal gales. The rain's still with us on Sunday morning. Northern England, parts of Wales, seeing those outbreaks of rain heavy at first. It does tend to push southeastwards and weaken by the afternoon. Sunny spells return elsewhere, a fresher feel for northwest Scotland, but feeling warm in the sunshine away from here. And next week starts off with further rain and showers in places.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christys, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christys, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Join me, Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner, Monday to Thursday, 9:30 a.m.
Who benefits from that? Not the British public.
And on Fridays, join us, Tom Harwood
and Ellie Costello from Britain's Newsroom.
That's what you get with this show. That's fantastic.
If it's happening, we're talking about it on Britain's Newsroom.
GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, I'm Patrick Christys, back with you for some Friday night fun. It's the start of the weekend after all, so let's kick back and enjoy ourselves and what a lineup we have for you. Tonight on the show, big speech this week on migration from Suella Braverman, but is she getting it right? I have two guests who definitely think otherwise. We are starting our Friday night with a massive row on immigration, which I imagine will be very similar to what takes place in your home a little bit later on. Also tonight, me and my fantastic panel will be entering the spin room, where good stories turn bad and bad ones turn good. We will be delving round your parts. That's the part of the show where we run through some fun stories from around this wonderful nation, the best of local news. And, of course, we will finish with the missing words quiz, where we show the panel some newspaper headlines with, yeah, you guessed it, one word missing. And it's the long-awaited return of Dog of the Week. No, not really, don't worry, that's next week. This should be a lot of fun. So first, let's get your headlines, yeah, with Aaron Armstrong.
Very good evening to you. It is 8:01. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. We start with some breaking news. The Libyan Coast Guard has been accused of deliberately ramming and sinking a migrant boat in the Mediterranean, leaving dozens of people in the water, and some of them are still missing.
Mayday, 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 mayday relay, mayday relay, mayday relay. People in the water.
Now, GB News has received this dramatic footage of the incident. It's been taken by the Sea-Watch NGO off the coast of Benghazi. That's in western Libya. The video shows this large inflatable migrant boat begin to sink. The Libyan Coast Guard vessel is nearby, along with a rigid inflatable. And as the Sea-Watch helicopter continues to film, you can see dozens of people in the water using tyre inner tubes as life jackets. This quote from a Sea-Watch spokesperson: the unit of the so-called Libyan Coast Guard rammed and caused the sinking of a dinghy overloaded with at least 50 people. Some of them were certainly captured and deported to Libya. The survivors cannot be found. So a very grave incident taking place there off the coast of western Libya. The boat, one of multiple vessels which left the coast of North Africa earlier today, bound for the Italian islands. And we'll have more on that as soon as we get it here at GB News. Now, a 14-year-old girl and a coach driver have died after a school bus overturned on the M53 on